Hello and welcome to another live demonstration. Today I want to introduce you to and work with the Graphitint. So this is Derwent Graphitint. So what is it? It is graphite tinted with a colour, which is, you can't see, so if you use them as they are, so a colour I've picked up Storm, you can see they give a nice, I'm just choosing the strongest colours, they give a subtle colour. So this is Autumn, and then that was Storm. So you can use them just as you would do a graphite pencil. What I do find is that they're actually quite soft. So they're wax based with the tint of colour and a graphite mix. I find they're not as hard as graphite pencils, but what they do is give you these lovely subtle colours. So there's a Autumn, Storm, and here's a green one. And you can see how soft they are as they're crumbling. Now I'm using on a watercolour paper because I know I'm going to be adding water. They will go on cartridge paper, anything you use graphite with, but because you've got the addition of water, I'm using something that I know ensures that they work with water. So Storm, so that was the neat pencil, and the colour which comes out when you add water is much more powerful, much stronger. Autumn, that's the really bright red one. So look at the difference with that one, that's much more dramatic. And I think this was Sage. And again, you can see the real power of the colour. So these are the range of colours I've got. I've not got the full 24, I'm missing a few along. But to be honest, it gives me a good, stable range. And you can see how some colours are much stronger than others. Other ones are a little bit more subtle. So light fast ratings is something to consider because it has colour. Graphite is totally light fast. It won't fade over time. It's the colour you need to look out for. So I've looked at the light fast ratings of these colours. Now the light fast ratings give you the light fast ratings of the colours as they are without the addition of water. If you add water, you're taking away some of that graphite which just exposes the colour, and that means the colour can be less light fast. Most of the colours are above 6, so anything above 6 is good high light fast ratings. The few colours which aren't are the Juniper Aubergine, Dark Indigo, so that purple blue range. The rest are highly light fast, so there's no problem there. Just be aware of these colours. Yeah, I've only got 2 of the colours. Can fade, they're not overly light fast. But it doesn't really matter because there's so many ways nowadays that you can work out how to solve that problem. You don't use them or put them under glass or something that offers UV protection. So that's my range of colours. I've also added white. Just to see how well it went over the colours. It wasn't worth me doing it on this because you can't see it. But what I want to see is how well it will go over. And you can see it is quite opaque and even stronger when I add colour. Now I sharpened all of these pencils quite well to a nice fine point. But because they're so soft, they're starting to blunt down really quickly. Not a big problem, I can work around it because I've got my Derwent sharpener which sharpens all pencils, including pastel pencils. Found out I'm left-handed with this. It does attach to a table, but I haven't because it's easier to move around. And you can see that lovely point that this gives. Pastel pencils use them the same, just a lot slower, and every now and then run a graphite pencil through. The graphite helps to clean the blade and it just makes the pencil sharpener last that little bit longer, but on the whole, a really, really, really useful sharpener. So what I'm going to do is, this is an armadillo. Again, my own image. So I have armadillo facts, and I'm going to talk about them as well as talking about how I'm going to use the Graphitint. So all I'm going to do with this is I'm using one colour to go around the armadillo's shell. It's called a shell. What it is made from a keratin protein, which is the same as we have from nails, but it's a bony plates that offer this protection. Now this one is a 3-banded armadillo, so 1, 2, 3. I think there's about 21 different types. The largest is it's called the giant armadillo. I did find that the names for armadillos are very descriptive and say exactly what they are. So you've got the giant armadillo, which can grow to 1.5 metres. So that's a huge. And then you've got the tiniest one, which is called a pink fairy armadillo, which is pink, and it's about as big as your hand. Another one, which I thought was hilarious, was the screaming hairy armadillo, which does exactly what it says. It's hairy, and it screams when in danger. Now, I learnt something, because I always assumed that all armadillos could roll up into a ball, but apparently they can't. There's only a couple, which is the 3-band, is one of them that can roll into the ball fully, because the other ones have different bands and they're less flexible. So it's only the 3-banded one. This is, I think, from Brazil. And this, in Portuguese, is called a tuta bola, so bald armadillo, and is the emblem of the 2014 FIFA World Cup. So little bald armadillo. Armadillo is Spanish for little armoured one. So, like I say, a lot of the words for armadillo are just very descriptive. It says what they are. Native to South America, with I think one species in Florida. I think it's a 9-band, to be honest. So this is the 3-band from Brazil. Luckily I've got loads of facts, because this is going to take a while. Now, these aren't exactly the same as I can see on the original, but again, time. If I had a lot more time, I would be a lot more careful, but sometimes it's nice to be a little free and just know you have to get things down quickly. It's a very good skill to learn, being able to get things down quickly. Because, you know, if you're out sketching or plein air, you don't always have the time. Weather dependent, people dependent if you're trying to observe people. So I usually only have about 45 minutes to an hour to do these demos. So a lot of them are a bit sketchy, less detailed than I could do. But sometimes that's quite a nice effect. So you see here, I'm following my original lines, which I needed to draw out because I couldn't draw out and do them at the same time, not in the short time I've got. And they do create lines that way and that way, which is something to consider. But I'm just slightly changing, being quick with the shape. And it doesn't really matter, you'll in the end see it's an armadillo. So this is the storm colour, which I think is a little grey and a little violet. You can't see it, the colour, at the moment on the Armadillo, it's when I add water. That's when you will really see. Let's quicken up because... And you can see that I did that in a really nice sharp point, and because it's quite soft, it's starting to wear down. One way to keep that point a little longer is I'm naturally turning. Every time I make a mark, I'm turning the pencil, which helps to give an even wear and keep it a little bit sharper. I think if you use pencils a lot, it's something you kind of naturally do. You'll see it keeps going round in my hand. I don't always notice I'm doing it or consciously do it. It's just something, because I also move how I hold the pencil a little bit. So while I'm moving it, I'm turning it. And this works for any pencil, colour, pastel pencils it works well with, because they again are quite soft. Graphite pencils, it's just the turning of the pencil to keep it a little bit sharper for longer. Okay, getting there. I think this is the longest bit. The rest will just fall into place quite quickly. It's a bit wobbly, not as smooth. So this Armadillo, the 3-banded, the one that will snap shut. So as a defence, it curls up. This one was sleeping, so it curls up to sleep. But it doesn't always curl up fully into the ball. It stays open slightly, but what it can do, if it is in danger, it purposely stays open a little bit, so any predator puts its paw or face near it, it snaps shut, and it's quite sharp. Apparently the sharp edges can be used to cut into things. I can't remember where I saw, because they eat insects, but they can eat other meats as well, but they can use the sharp edges to cut things. So they will sit like this and then snap shut, which it can be. Okay, that looks fine. I'm going to put a different colour on the tail. Put a few, so that's slightly different scales or platelets. Right. So now I'm going to. One good thing, I dropped it, was to have your colour chart with you, because all of these colours, you cannot see what colour is what really. So I'll find my colour chart swatch and I'll have it next to me. But I can vaguely remember what colours I was using. And to be honest, sometimes it's a surprise. It's quite nice to use something and not realise you've used it. So I'm just putting on a bit of colour, and I'm not putting a lot of colour because I want it a mix between a kind of watercolour pencil, watercolour effect, and I will make it look like a pencil drawing as well. I like to mix both of those qualities, because that's exactly what it is. It's a water-soluble graphite pencil. So I want that quality to come through. Just picking up a few colours. So the shell on this is quite yellow, but I do know they can vary slightly to much browner, much more yellow. And again, you'll see I'm not always filling every what they call platelets, or not filling every one with colour, because I don't need to. I'm putting colour down. And the thing I did notice when using this, it's really good to layer and to put a little bit on and then work back into it, because it's much easier to work back in than it is to find that you've put too much on and that you need to take it back off. Unlike other graphite pencils or graphite pencils, I do find that they're not very blendable, very movable. So the wax base in them kind of keeps them quite set. Juniper. That's a bit of fun there. Is that? So at the moment it's pretty muted, but once I start to add the colour, it starts to sing to life. And this is why I haven't used the colour in all of the area, because I can just move the colour I've put down and move it. I'm going to have some surprises because I know I've put other colours on. So all I'm just doing is just catching the pigment that I've put down and moving it. Easy to go back in, much easier. If I'm light at this stage, I know I can go back in and alter and add. Put some, I think that was juniper, that was, that lovely violet colour. So I know I tend to mess about a little bit with colour, i.e. look at something and it may be brown, but there's more, or black. Black is a really classic, but there's more to black. You can put reds and blues and violets in something that's black, and I think it just adds some fun. So again with this, I know the basic colour, but you can also see some violets and blues and maybe a little bit of brown. I'm going to pick up some blue. Now, when it's wet, so if you've got a wet surface, and if you drop, and it's drying, and you don't know if it's too dry. If it's dry, you can work over it, but if it's still slightly damp, what you'll find is that colour really pings out, which was a surprise when I thought some areas were dry. But just be aware that when it's nice and dry, you can go over and you can do much more subtle, but while it's still that damp, you can actually do stronger colours. Right, where was I? So some of that blue I added, just making it a little lighter on top, just to add some different tonal values. See how quickly that's built up. Using a synthetic brush because I like the quality, the stiffer hair that you get with a synthetic. It just helps to move the graphite. And this is a cellulose paper. This is actually the SAA practice paper, because I know a watercolour paper is designed to take and move a wet medium across the surface. But a heavyweight cartridge may work just as well. Need some more colour. Just pick up different colours. And I noticed when I was looking at them on the internet walking around, they have huge ears. Absolutely huge ears, which just stick out just there through their armour, little armoured ones. And they're related to the anteaters and sloths. So they're in that genus. They have long, sticky tongues, which helps them eat the insects. And so their long snout is part of that group of animals. Right. Just adding, so I've added a little bit of the blue, and that just adds that extra dimension here. Like I say, I can't always see which colour I'm putting on, which is actually part of the fun. And the colour I put down initially still will move. So that's adding with the colours I've put on. If I'm careful, I can get both colours. Synthetic brushes tend to not hold as much water as a natural hairbrush, so I will have to keep wetting a little more than I would do a natural hair, but it's the quality of the brush I'm looking for. Now I know this looks a little light at the moment, but I've done that on purpose because I want to be able to build up. And I think that's looking nice. Look at the colours that are coming out. Using this at the moment to put colour on rather than as a drawing tool. So these are the soft bands, and they're much softer and smoother. So if I make them look that little bit smoother inside, that's how you can alter the textures. So 3-banded armadillo, one of those that will snap shut. I'm going to do the tail in the same way. So there's going to be a darker under here, and it has slightly different shaped bands. They're a little bit more like scales. And this it fits really nice. If you've seen an armadillo close, it kind of, the head fits in like that. So it fits in really neatly. It's an amazing evolution of an animal. They're in South America, and I think they're not endangered, but habitat and loss of habitat can make, is at risk for this animal. But a lot of the southern states adore this little creature, and it's used, I think, in a number of states as a national symbol. Okay, so a nice light wash, enabling me to be able to build up on this. So what I think we'll do is we'll take a short break. I can then work in the middle, which is the darkest. So if I do the darkest next, I can then know how dark I need to do the other areas. So join me in a moment.
Hi, I'm Ali Hargreaves, and I'm here to introduce you to Ready Steady Paint. This is a monthly art subscription box for 6 to 11-year-olds. Ready Steady Paint has been designed by today's artists to support, develop and encourage those of tomorrow. I have had over 20 years experience as a primary school teacher. I've worked as an artist in residence in a number of primary schools, and I'm also a mum. I've seen how creative subjects, especially art, has declined over the years and has been taught less and less in the educational system. We feel very passionate about filling in this artistic void. We're so excited to share the experience with you and your children. We hope to give children a chance to produce beautiful pieces of art with high quality materials. Following a hand-curated syllabus, each month subscribed children will receive a box full of high-quality artistic goodies in the post. Using these materials, they'll be able to follow the online tutorials delivered by me and accessed through the Ready Steady Paint website. All this will be conveniently delivered to your door at an affordable cost. There is so much to learn and so many wonderful activities to complete and rewards to gain. So what are you waiting for? Join us on this journey of artistic fun and discovery.
Hello and welcome back. So in the meantime, I've managed to find my swatches, which helps me choose the colour. I wasn't overly concerned, to be honest. It's a bit of fun to see what colour happens in the shell. And because I was doing it quite light, it's so easy to go over and alter. So now I'm going to go in to the middle bit. So this is the darkest bit. And like I say, you can't see the colours, which is why I'm going to use my swatch to help me choose the colours I want to use. So this is the large claw that they have for digging, and they sleep in burrows. They're actually excellent climbers, so they can climb really well, but they will often sleep in burrows, or this kind of armadillo will curl up and sleep under a hedge because it's got that extra defence for about 16 to 18 hours a day. So they sleep during the hottest times, and then they're nocturnal and will come out and forage for food, which is usually insect based. They're solitary. Back feet don't have that biggest claw. The biggest claw is at the front, and they walk on their tiptoes at the front because of the size of the claw. And they even have little scales or on their feet and their arms, just as a extra protection. So a few, like I say, big eyes and really big ears. I've not brought out the ear yet. It's sticking out of the shell here. So put down a colour, quite a lot because it is quite dark. Let me bang down another colour. Again, not too much because it's so much easier to come back to than it is to take away. And I know this autumn colour is very strong. Put a little bit in there, and only a little bit. It's so much easier to come back. Storm, actually shadow, so it's quite dark blue. This is where I can make sure I add some values, because it's really difficult seeing inside, which is the point, but I do know there will be some folds, and if I indicate that now, I can always go back over and darken, but it's much harder to put those shapes in later. And I'm using that dark colour to bring out some shadow into the shell. So that's a really nice, what is it, aubergine, I think. Making sure I'm going up to the shell, dark under here. And I'm going to be a little bit more careful on the foot because there's a little bit of light catching it. So if I can just easily leave some of that light showing through, it's much easier to have to try and find it at a later time. So this will pick up that lovely autumn, which is, I think, of all the colours, it's the brightest. Got a little bit on the face. Still quite light. I know this is darkest area, but I don't want to overwhelm it at the moment. And what I'm also going to do, I keep missing the ear, I want to show that because I thought that was so cute. Little ear poking out. Let's just use the pencil as a pencil. So now I'm thinking about here. So this bit of the armour goes it's got to come this way because it is sticking out. So a little bit here. And that is folding over this bit underneath. So just using the pencil as a pencil rather than adding colour will help me strengthen some of these colours inside. And again here, what I did notice was the more you use the pencil as a pencil, you'll get that graphite shine come through. I don't know if you can see that now, but that shine of graphite, when I've used it as a pencil to, rather than adding the colour, really does start to ping, so like you can burnish it. And this is where you can see that it has graphite in it. Using that technique I use quite a lot when I'm trying to get colour down. And again, altering the strength and putting the colour down. So under here is the darkest. It's set back. If I haven't done it dark enough, I do have a black. I have no problem going back and using a black to really darken, but I will often use it right at the end, because I don't want to go too dark straight away. I want to keep the colour. And I actually like the texture I'm getting from the pencil as it is. So the nose will have picked up a little bit of the light because it's just poking out. Same with here. But in here is going to be as dark as I can get it without putting the black on quite yet. So using this graphite pencil as a pencil, as it was also designed to be used as. Shade that down. So if you're not confident with colours, this is a really nice, subtle way of introducing yourself to it, because you can go back and use it as a pencil. But this is the fun bit, this ability to just make it sing that little bit more. But I don't want to lose all of that graphite quality. Oh, look at that, it's picking up that autumn, which I think is a bit strong. So let's put some blue in, and you can see I'm layering. Using the black now as my last layer in the middle, just to really push back a little bit darker and push inside. But I'm being really careful because I love some of these colours, and if I put a light layer on, it will darken without losing that colour. And in here, this needs to be dark as well. I'm going to put some background on using the texture of the paper. So this is actually a not textured paper. I have no problem using a rough paper when I'm doing this, because you can work with the texture and just use it like I'm here for the background. I needed to change direction, so I changed hands. You can usually turn your paper around. But using your other hand is actually a really interesting skill because you don't have the same control. I use it quite often, so I'm a little better, but you don't have the same control. But it does help you look and observe things a little bit more because you're a little bit fearful of using your opposite hand. And I'm not going to do much with this because I quite like this texture, but I do need to work on the shadow under here. Because again, it's got to be dark because the armadillo is creating that shadow. So is it creating a shadow around the area it's sleeping. If I'd left it very white on the background, it just looks like it's floating. This grounds it. And you'll often hear people saying grounding. And that's all it is just making sure the whole story comes together. And that's what grounding does. So let's see if I can, might not have enough colour on this first layer. I've chosen to use a bigger brush just so I can move the pigment a little bit looser than I would do with a tiny brush. Don't often use a tiny brush. And I don't mind if the background comes in the colours on the armadillo. It's all part of the whole. Not completely sure what colours I put on, so it's part of the surprise. Just making sure I'm going up to and not leaving a halo. So great for working and layering. Now I'm going to look at maybe a little bit more depth. So using a pencil to bring out some darker areas. Around here it is much darker where the tail is under. And creating slightly dark areas because the shadows here a little bit, and these little platelets are curved, so they will be casting a little bit more shadow than they are at the moment. They're quite flat. Just darken. To see if it's the colour I need to darken with or the pencil. So let's darken that down. What I do know is, because that's still wet, I can go in with the pencil and it will make a really strong mark on the wet surface. Right, let's darken some of these. I might just pick up another colour because I'm not going to be wetting it. I can use the subtleness of the Graphitint pencil and the characteristics, that sketchy feel. Now jumping around a little bit because I'm seeing areas that need to be worked on. This is not dark enough. This needs to be darkened. darkened around, because from what we're seeing is we're seeing it from above. So all of this will be casting shadow. Midnight black. Don't know if you can see, but this is such a soft pencil. I can feel it going down. The lighter your lights are, the darker your darks are. I know that sounds fairly obvious, but it's a really great way of deciding how much dark to put on. I probably go a little too dark sometimes. Right, so now's the fun part. This is actually the bit I like. You get past all that stage of putting colour on, and I tend to rush it because I like to get it on quickly. This is the bit you can calm down, relax, and just start to look at the detail without overdoing it. Now I can start to look at shadow, look at areas which are inside one another or overlapped by one another. What I'm going to do is just pick up some colours and just, don't know what I've got, and just put them on. They're not going to overpower because they're subtle. I'm going to get more of the tint, the graphite coming through, which is the darker. I'm going to pick up a purple. Is that purple? That's stone. Can't find my purples. I've got them in my hand. No. Don't know. Mystery. I'll just work with waffle till I've got them. Juniper's one of the purples. And the reason I've just picked up random colours is because I don't want to be overly concerned about the colours I'm putting on, and because I'm putting them on as graphite, it's not going to overpower too much. If I don't add the water, it's the water that will really make the colours sing. And as I'm not using it, I can just be a little bit more flexible with what I'm using. So let's darken here. Thinking about where shadow would be. Under the head here. Very soft. A little bit dark for the ear, but it's catching the light. And blue. Most of the time, I would usually suggest looking at their ends for the colour, but in this occasion, it doesn't help because all the ends look just the same. So this is why I'm taking a guide from the pencil tips. And even in this graphite state, some colours are a little stronger than others. Few little scales here. Bring that mouth back. Go back in, darken, because I think that's still a bit light. So just being able to layer, go back in and alter and adapt. One thing you can't do is not easy to lift out or erase, especially when you've added the water. The water tends to fix it. So this is why I've worked a little bit light at the beginning, because it's so much easier to add the darker tones than it is to come back. Now I can keep going and I can keep building up and working on these tones and values. But at the moment I think it's worked pretty well. Anything with this, you'll just keep going, you'll keep wanting to add that little bit more. What I want to do is add the final flourish. So, what other armadillo facts? Baby armadillos are called pups, and they can have 4 from one egg. They're great swimmers, great climbers. What else? Let's look at that sharpness I'm getting from that sharpener. I can't think of anything else, apart from, like I said, this is the last bit, is the hairs here. So if you look carefully, they have little hairs right at the edge. And these hairs help them, because they're nocturnal and they've actually got very poor eyesight, these hairs help them feel around. So they're kind of like, you know, when you've got a road sweeper and those little brushes that sweep up, it helps them to know where the edge is. The same with these. It helps them to know where edges of things are. So I'm just putting on. Now, I tried to decide how I was going to do that. This is the white Graphitint, and as you can see, it works pretty well. Maybe not so well on the shell, but I tried to use one of these white pens, which pretty much goes on anything, apart from, because these have graphite in them, it tends, and it's quite silky and shiny, it does tend to not work as well, and it tends to slip off. So you can see here, I'm not getting that really nice white line that I get with other things. And it's the graphite. So it still has a little bit of that quality of graphite in it. That shininess, especially here, where I've really worked in and really layered. Look, I can keep going, Gary, really can. It's quite nice, this bit. It starts to fall together. But I also have to know when to go, that's enough. Really do. You have to know when to say that's enough. Okay, no, that's enough. Like I say, there's areas and can keep working in and add more tonal values. But on the whole, I think you can see how the Graphitint pencils work. Work with them as a pencil and you'll get, you know, subtle colours. Some a little stronger than others. Add the water and then you've got that pow. Still got that graphic quality that, I'm not sure you can see it, but it's that shiny, slippery graphite that you get that shine, which you can get when you do layer. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed the Armadillo facts. And join me on Friday for another live workshop.